Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's jump right in. If you work anywhere near federal procurement, you know government purchasing can sometimes feel like trying to solve a giant puzzle blindfolded. Picture this. Your agency needs critical supplies immediately to keep operations running, but you're stuck in a 6-month negotiation loop just because you picked the wrong contracting vehicle from the get-go. It's a complete administrative nightmare. The stakes are huge here. We're talking about saving valuable time, dodging administrative headaches, and ultimately being impeccable stewards of taxpayer money. So today, we're unpacking some essential insights from our source material to completely demystify two of the heavy hitters in the federal contracting toolkit, the IDIQ and the BPA. By the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly which tool to grab from your belt and exactly when to use it to keep your mission moving forward.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll establish our baseline with the Federal Contracting Toolkit, dive deep into the IDIQ, then explore the BPA. After that, we'll put them head-to-head for the major differences, and finally, look at exactly when to use each in the real world.
Section 1. The Federal Contracting Toolkit, Establishing the Baseline.
To really appreciate these tools, we first have to acknowledge a massive hurdle in government purchasing. Federal agencies have huge, incredibly complex needs, right? But they almost never know exactly what they'll need or exactly when they'll need it. That level of uncertainty would cause daily procurement disasters without highly adaptable mechanisms to handle it. Enter our two ultimate solutions, the IDIQ, which stands for Indefinite Delivery, Indefinite Quantity, and the BPA, the Blanket Purchase Agreement. Now, while they share the same big-picture goal to radically streamline procurement and make purchasing significantly faster, they are fundamentally distinct mechanisms. It's actually fascinating how differently they operate. They carry entirely different administrative weights, they require different levels of legal commitment, and most importantly, they solve totally different sizes of problems for contracting officers.
Section 2. IDIQ, the Guaranteed Contract, the Heavyweight Contender.
Let's start with the IDIQ, or as I like to call it, the heavyweight contender. When an agency has a massive, complex job to do over several years, this is the tool they reach for. What's absolutely crucial to understand here is how the IDIQ is grounded in its official authoritative framework. It is authorized under FAR Part 16.5. Now, if you're a contracting professional, knowing exactly where this lives in the Federal Acquisition Regulation isn't just trivia. It literally dictates your entire strategy. FAR Part 16.5 outlines the rigid structures required for this heavyweight tool. It's an area of the rulebook designed for high dollar values, strict compliance, and rigorous oversight. That tells you right away that setting up an IDIQ is a serious foundational commitment for an agency.
So, let's break down how this heavyweight contender actually works in practice. The most vital concept to grasp is that an IDIQ is a strict, legally binding contract. Think about what makes a contract legally binding. There has to be consideration. Because it's binding, the government is inherently making a minimum financial guarantee to the vendor capped off by a maximum dollar ceiling. You set this up when you absolutely know you're going to need a major service or a lot of product, but the exact quantities or the precise delivery dates, total mystery. When the government is actually ready to pull the trigger and buy something off this heavy-duty contract, they don't just send a casual email. They issue formal task orders for services or delivery orders for physical products. Because setting this up requires immense upfront heavy lifting, agencies don't just do it for a few months. These contracts often span 3 to 5 years to maximize that upfront effort. And brilliantly, an agency can award an IDIQ to a single vendor or make it a multi-award, creating a fierce ongoing competition at the task order level among a select pool of pre-qualified vendors.
Section 3. BPA, the Streamlined Agreement, the Agile Sprinter.
If the IDIQ is our heavyweight contender, the BPA is, without a doubt, the Agile Sprinter. This is your everyday, fast-paced tool for routine tasks. What's absolutely fascinating here is the regulatory shift. BPAs live in a completely different neighborhood of the rulebook compared to IDIQs. They are authorized under FAR 13-303 and also FAR 8.405-3 when dealing with federal supply schedules. These sections of the regulation are entirely focused on simplified, streamlined acquisition procedures. It's a profound shift in mindset. You're moving away from the heavy-duty, highly rigid framework of Part 16.5 into a space designed explicitly to cut through red tape, reduce lead times, and make the government purchasing process operate much more like a modern commercial business.
The fundamental distinction to understand here is that a BPA is not a standalone contract. It is simply an agreement.
Honestly, the best way to think about a BPA is to imagine opening a charge account at your local hardware store. The government is essentially setting up a trusted tab with a vendor designed specifically for repeat, low-dollar buys. Because it's just a handshake agreement and a set of pre-negotiated terms, there is absolutely no guaranteed minimum. The government isn't legally promising to buy even a single paperclip. Furthermore, when you actually want to purchase something, you don't issue a massive, complex task order. Instead, you place what's simply known as a call. You are literally calling on the agreement to make a quick purchase. The major benefit here is the incredibly streamlined setup. It requires flexible funding, it's exponentially easier to establish than an IDIQ, and it aligns perfectly with simplified acquisition procedures. It's fast, it's light, and it gets routine administrative jobs done without bogging down your team.
Section 4. The major differences. The head-to-head showdown.
When you put these two tools side by side, the contrast is beautifully stark. We're looking at a fundamental divide in the very nature of the procurement. On one hand, your IDIQ locks you into a strict contract with built-in, legally binding financial guarantees. On the other hand, your BPA is an agile agreement with zero guarantee of future work. Naturally, this drastically impacts the complexity of your job. Because of those binding guarantees and high dollar values, the IDIQ brings much higher administrative complexity, demanding serious upfront negotiation. The BPA strips all of that away, offering refreshingly low complexity. Finally, this showdown highlights a critical change in terminology that contracting officers just have to master. With an IDIQ, you are formally issuing task or delivery orders. With a BPA, you're placing fast, simple calls. Choosing between these two fundamentally changes your administrative burden, your legal obligations, and the very language you use to buy things for the government.
Section 5. When to use each. Practical applications.
Knowing the rules is great, but a highly effective contracting officer needs to know exactly when to pull out each tool in the real world. You're going to want to select the IDIQ when you're facing incredibly complex or highly uncertain requirements. Imagine you're tasked with upgrading the IT infrastructure across 50 different federal buildings over the next 5 years. The overarching goal is clear, but the day-to-day specifics, the exact hardware needs at each location, and the exact timing, completely unknown right now. That is a massive program that demands the robust framework of an IDIQ. Furthermore, if your strategy requires ongoing competition at the task order level, meaning you want a pool of highly qualified IT vendors fiercely fighting for individual pieces of that project to drive down costs, the multi-award IDIQ is the exact vehicle you need to build.
In stark contrast, you want to use the BPA for your routine, highly predictable buys. Let's be honest, you do not want to spend 6 months fiercely negotiating a complex contract just to buy printer toner, basic landscaping services, or standard office chairs. When you're operating within simplified acquisition procedure thresholds, the BPA shines brightly. It's explicitly designed for situations where your primary goal is keeping the administrative burden low. You just want an agile, reliable agreement in place that lets your team make a quick call, get exactly what they need at a pre-negotiated price, and keep the agency running smoothly without generating a mountain of complex paperwork.
Let's lock this in with two clear, back-to-back real-world examples from the source material. Imagine you're managing federal facilities. You know a massive federal complex is going to need maintenance over a 5-year period, but you have no idea if a roof is going to leak next month or if an HVAC system will catastrophically fail in the middle of winter. The specific tasks are entirely unknown, but the large-scale financial need is undeniable and guaranteed. That absolutely requires the heavy lifting of an IDIQ. Now imagine you're managing the supply closet for that exact same building. You know your agency is going to need a steady stream of paper, pens, and file folders frequently throughout the year. These are small, totally routine purchases. Setting up a heavy 5-year guaranteed contract with complex task orders for paperclips? That makes absolutely no sense. Instead, you set up a streamlined BPA, establish a charge account with a trusted vendor, and make frequent, simple calls to restock those shelves.
To summarize this entire explainer into one foundational takeaway, IDQs provide the required flexibility for large, uncertain, and highly complex needs. BPAs provide the ultimate efficiency for routine, everyday purchases. Why does this matter so much? Because mastering the difference between these two mechanisms literally saves the federal government millions of dollars and thousands of administrative hours every single year. Both of these tools are absolutely vital. They both dramatically streamline procurement, and they both support critical government missions. They just solve entirely different sizes of problems. And knowing exactly which one to use is exactly what separates a good contracting professional from a great one.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on as you look at your own desk and your current workload.
Is your current procurement strategy actually supporting your mission? Or are you just adding unnecessary administrative burden by using a sledgehammer when all you really needed was a scalpel? Understanding the distinct powers of the IDIQ and the BPA ensures you're always using the right tool for the job. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep learning.